We're not waiting for opportunity, we creating opportunity. We're not waiting for opportunity, we creating opportunity. What's your net worth? What is your net worth? What you got? What you got? Huh? What's your bottom line? All right, so I told you each week we're going to talk about something particular in the income statement, the profit and loss statement. That tells you your net worth, right? Because a lot of us like to go on there and search up other people's net worth, artists, basketball players, athletes, actors, people who sell certain things. Hey, what's the net worth? How much is made from this, right? So we're gonna go through this process. Last week, you can check that video out. I talked to you about the overall, in a little quick detail about the overall profit and loss statement, your income statement, your net worth, right? How you get to that point. So I want to put it together with you, on some line items, some key line items on the income statement that you can relate to yourself, as a W-2 worker, a W-2 worker meaning you work in a 9 to 5, or as a person who has a Schedule C, a person who, is a sole proprietor, a person who has their own company, or somebody who does their own services or sells their own products, or if you have an established company as well. And maybe you just need some insight on this. But also we're going to talk about how it relates to you as a person, how you can use that to see your personal net worth as a person, as an individual as well, because these things go together. You know what I'm saying? If you think about it, right, depending on how you file your status, your company is a separate entity itself, right? They can't attack your personal goods, your personal bank account, your personal assets that you have, right? If you have your company set up as its own individual entity where they can just attack everything your company has, you still work for it for your company, but they can't take anything you got on your personal assets, right? Because it's its own entity, it's its own value, it has its own bank account, it has its own assets, right? So it's still its own individual, right? It's individually by itself, right? So we're gonna come together and I'm gonna talk about the revenue, right? Revenue or sales, right? On the income statement, right? They call this the top line, right? The gross, right? Which is basically any services or products you might use to incur revenue during operations, right? So, anything you're doing with the operation that brings in that revenue, that brings in those sales, right? The sales of services or products, right? So if you're a plumber, right, and you go ahead and you did services for somebody and you issue them an invoice, that's revenue, that's a sale, right? If you're selling products online, drop ship, right? Someone goes ahead, they pick out a shirt, they charge their card to it, boom, you just got another sale, right? That's a sale, right? That's revenue. They call that the top line because that's everything you got automatically in your account before you allocate it to all the other expenses and possible losses and gains that you may have occurred throughout this business transaction or throughout this period for it. So from a certain date to a certain date, right? So when you look at the revenue and you look at it and you see that operations is connected to the sales and the revenue. So how you're operating and what you choose to operate with, what you choose to operate as, if you're doing service or products. But you have to think about that throughout the week now. What did you do this week to create some sort of revenue? To create some type of gross for yourself? Or we can say AKA growth for yourself. What did you do in that situation? What did you operate? How did you operate this week that can get you some kind of income, right? If we're looking at it from a financial point of view. Or how did you operate this week that got you some kind of mental stability, mental strength, physical strength, health strength that you can use towards other things that may attack you, right? Because revenue, like I said, the sale, right? That's just the top, right? You sold this for this amount. And now hopefully you put yourself in a position or you have a historical data that can show you what you need to charge so you can deal with the expenses heading your way. So with us everyday people, right, that would be what? You get paid, or you have a certain payment, right? You get paid hourly, right? So you did hourly payment, right? Now you get hit with certain things that you may taken out. You may taken out pre-tax stuff, right? That you, whatever you had chosen for your pre-taxes, if that's insurance, if that's 401ks, whatever that might be, you know, you get taxed on it, right? All these things, but then you still have what? You still have your rent, you still have your gas, you still have your mortgage, you still have food expenses, you may still have childcare expense, you may still have school expense. You know, you may have all these other expenses that you still have to deal with. You may have to cut your lawn twice a month. You know, these things that you want to do, right, on your home and you have to do. So you have these different expenses that'll arise. And then you have some things that you may take out extra and you may put into an investment somewhere else, right? To bring you back gain. Did you get gain from that you did 2-3 weeks ago? Did you put some money somewhere in an investment? So now that's why I'm saying this top number counts. Did this help you? You know, this is why they say about the sacrifice that you make. When you make that sacrifice, they say for like 6 months to a year, you know, that sacrifice of 6 months to a year should be helping you for the next 10 to 15 years at least, right? At least 10 years, you know, 5 to 10, where you're like, okay, I'm okay because I made the sacrifice for whatever goal you were trying to get at, whatever you were trying to build, whatever you were trying to strengthen in yourself, and that should help your life, you know, in the future. So what operations are you putting in play, right? What are you doing basically with your week that's gaining you some either income, some type of mental, physical, emotional strength, right? Towards your overall revenue, right? Your personal revenue, right? What is that? What did you do this week? How did you do that this week? You know, did you do it in the proper manner? You know, was it a good week? Was it a bad week? Because sometimes we could have good weeks, right? Where it's like, oh man, it was 2-3 weeks I'm straight. And out of nowhere, you get a bad week where you don't get as much back as you put out there. It happens. That's how organizations work, right? They know, like, yo, I'm going to have some bad weeks, man. I may have some bad months or a bad season, right? So what they do, they make sure in a good season, they hold on to that good season. They cut their expenses. They cut things that could really attack them during the good season. They call it lean. You know, they may not have that many workers on deck because they're like, yo, we got to make sure this can kind of allocate throughout the whole year, right? So I heard a guy say a few years ago, I was standing getting a sub for my wife and kids. And me and my son was standing there and waiting for the subs to be made. And there was a barber shop right next door to it. And the guy goes, talking to his kids on the phone. I'm not like eavesdropping, but he's talking really loud, right? You know what I mean? So he's just talking to them. I'm like, whatever, it's no big deal. And he's like, I guess the kid asked him, you know, how's business going? He's like, oh, you know how it is, man. You got your good months, you got your bad months. But eventually, at the end of the day, once you figure that out, he said, you allocate everything up and it's all comes together the same way, right? He said, unless I'm trying to open another company or something like that, or another place, you know what I mean, where I got to cut back and open and do that to grow. But he's like, I found the steady income that I need and want to get throughout the year, right, from a period of time, because that's how the income statement works as well. It's shot from a period of time, right, from one period to another period, right, and you get to see the whole picture throughout that period, right? So he's like that. He's like, I'm making what I want to make yearly. So some months are slow, some months are up, but he allocated correctly his expenses and how he prepared for that during the down months where it doesn't affect him. See what I mean? So what are you putting in play in operations for things like that? Are you prepared for the downslope when it happens? You know, did that revenue this week, was it good enough? That mental, physical, emotional, financial, did you get enough of it where you can like, all right, I can help it. It can help me, I'm sorry, for other things. So like I said, when emotional, did you do enough emotional intake with yourself and inventory to deal with certain things that may attack you, right? That may have caused you issues a month ago, but now you have a better way to respond to it, right? So it's not taking as much from you next week when you run into it, whatever that relationship will be, whatever that trauma might be. You know what I mean? Mentally, you know, as well, because you control your emotions, right? You can control your mental, right? Then your habits. So you invested in other things by this one thing, and this revenue, whatever that was, the operation that you did this week, help that, right? Help you to when you get attacked by these things, you have enough of it. Where you're like, all right, it took a little bit, but it didn't take all because I was able to handle it. And that's how the finance goes, right? Did you get enough money, income this week? Did you get enough revenue this week to take care of your expenses? Did you? Is it worth it? Are you looking at your overall trend in a 3-month period, which we call a quarter, right? To say, this is how my expenses go for this quarter historically, right? Looking at it last year or the last 3 months. And this is what I need to do to make sure I stay good for these 3 months, right? You gotta review the historical data. You gotta go back and look. You gotta do some research. You gotta look at your life itself too. How was I thinking? How was I feeling through these situations? What was going on with me? What was I doing with that? How did I make that go together? So, I'm doing this. I'm gonna try to do this again on a scale. I'm gonna do it on a smaller scale like I'm doing now. I'm just giving you some overviews of it. I'm definitely gonna get some things together where we can talk more in depth with it, because I feel, everybody's chasing that bag, right? But no one has any true value. And that's the issue. And we have to create this value, and we have to understand how to create this value. You got to understand. So you got to really take your information, place it somewhere you can see it, take some historical data of behavioral events, habits, responses, finances, all of that, and take a look at it, and then you can attack it differently, and you can put some things in play to make you have a better net worth, so you can have a better worth of yourself, right? Because it's not just the financial piece we're only worried about. We're also worried about the worth, the self-worth. So this is why I'm trying to tell you some things about net worth and how we can equal this to self-worth. You understand? Because it's not just financial. You can put a spin on anything, whatever you can grab and put together for yourself. Because you have to take a look at your net worth, right? So you can understand your self-worth. The financial part, remember the financial piece of things, right? That revenue came in because of that operation. Whatever that operation was doing, whatever service or products it was supplying. So that was the value and how it did it. So you're the value piece. Your self-value will orchestrate how your financial value comes in, how your emotional value comes in, how your mental value comes in. You understand? Because your self-worth, right? So you're the operational piece. You're the overall operations. You're the overall corporation. And you have to make yourself valuable the best way you can. And you have to take notice of that. So please see what you were doing this week with your operations, how you were operating in order to give yourself revenue, income, right? And did you operate enough to hold you down for anything that may come attack you, right? Or did you operate enough where you have leftovers because this and this is gonna happen and I'm good for it, I'm good, and I'll have leftovers to invest in something else, invest in something else in myself, invest in something else financially, right? Because like I said, right, you have operations that create revenue. How are you operating to create your self-revenue, right? And then operations create revenue, and then you have all these things that attack it, right? You have different expenses and so forth and liabilities and whatever. And do you have anything left over to go ahead and reinvest, right? To create you some passive income. So do you have anything else in you that you can reinvest with yourself to create some passive habits that become passive behavior that's just great out of nowhere unconsciously? You understand? It'll take some time, but we're going to keep going through this, man. I'm going to keep going through each line of it and how it works, and I'm going to relate it to us because we're the value piece. We're the main piece for all of this. And if we don't get this piece right, then all of it doesn't really matter, because I don't care how much you got in the world. If you feel like a sucker, you a sucker. You know what I'm saying? There's nowhere around it. You feel what I'm saying? If you chasing, you chasing. You know what I mean? If you're not comfortable with yourself, you're just not comfortable with yourself. That's not going to, I don't care how much you get, because anything get taken away from you, then you're not good. How many times we see these billionaires lose like billions also, and they're still like, I'm fine, I'm good. Because they know their true value is not in that monetary piece. Their true value is right here, right here. You see it every day. They don't stress. They don't fold. They good. They don't care what you saying, because their self-worth is there. So, again, what's your net worth? What's your net worth for this week, people? Right? What's your net worth? So we're not waiting for opportunity. We create an opportunity. We're not waiting for opportunity. We create an opportunity.